Nam did thrust Van against the sturdy trunk of a tree that stood resolute in the heart of the field. They did engage in fervent embraces, their lips meeting with ardor, their breaths quickened with fervor. Time didst appear to fleet away with great haste, and they were acutely aware that not a moment could be squandered. They didst haste, yet their hearts brimmed with fervent emotion. The gentle caress of Nam, the eloquent movements of Van, all conjured forth a fervent nostalgia and a trepidation of revelation. Hark, thou art most welcome to this channel. If thou dost fancy thrilling and heartfelt tales of affection, then hie thee to our channel. Herein, we shall present tales replete with unexpected turns, fervent passions, and delightful revelations. Pray, do not let thy memory falter. Press the subscribe button and ring the bell of notification, lest thou miss any thrilling tales that await thee. In this day's presentation, we shall unfold a tale concerning a woman bound in matrimony. Pray, let us cast our gaze upon it. In the frigid season of that year, the chill didst creep upon the city following a deluge of rain. Hanoi, as ever, donned a somber hue. The thoroughfares brimmed with souls, each engaged in fervent preparations for the joyous festival of Tet. Nam was not an exception to this rule. Upon the passage of a year wrought with toil, he found himself filled with fervent anticipation to return to his kin and embrace them once more. Yet, in contrast to the years that have come before, this time Nam found himself somewhat weary and dulled in spirit. It appeared as though the tapestry of his existence was unraveling into a monotonous and wearisome pattern. Nam, a gentleman of 27 years, doth labor in the realm of information technology. With a steady occupation and ample earnings, Nam doth lead an autonomous existence within the bustling city. He possesses a visage most enchanting, a spirit ever bright, yet finds himself in solitude's embrace. Since his arrival in Hanoi, he hath dwelt in solitude, devoid of any profound emotional bond. His existence spun in a ceaseless cycle of toil, gatherings with companions, and then returning to the desolate abode. On that fateful afternoon, Nam resolved to depart from the office sooner than his customary hour. He intended to venture forth for a stroll ere he returned to his well-known abode. He had no engagement with any soul, merely seeking a change of scene amidst the bustling heart of Hanoi. As he readied himself for the festivities of Tet, as he journeyed towards Tet, Nam's steps guided him to a quaint coffee establishment known as Coffee Kiyuk. Nestled at the bend of an ancient thoroughfare, the atmosphere here is serene, imbued with a touch of the past, adorned with canvases that whisper tales of artistry, and accompanied by time-worn wooden chairs that beckon one to sit and ponder. Nam did select a nook by the window's embrace, summoned forth a steaming cup of coffee, and with a tranquil gaze, beheld the world beyond the glass. The lamps of the street did awaken, casting their gentle glow through the glass portal, weaving a tapestry of warmth amidst the chill of winter's breath. He drew in a deep breath, pondering the approaching days of celebration. Though he returned to the familiar streets of his youth, Nam found himself ensnared by an inexplicable solitude that lingered in the air. In an instant, his gaze was drawn to a lady who had but recently graced the shop with her presence. She donned a flowing garment, her visage wan yet tinged with weariness, her gaze heavy with sorrow, as though beset by great tribulations. She took her seat at the table yonder, summoned a steaming cup of tea, and then settled herself upon the chair, delicately casting aside the aged towel. Nam found himself unmoved by her elegance and refinement. In due course, Nam's keen eye discerned the subtle intricacies that lay before him. Her tresses were like clouds, soft and airy, her lips a gentle blush, delicate as the petals of a flower, and though light, they brimmed with allure. He knew not the reason for his deep allure, yet his gaze remained steadfast upon that fair lady. Her name was Van, a lady of 31 summers, engaged in the noble pursuit of accounting for a company that builds the very structures of our world. Van's existence was not devoid of substance, yet it yearned for the warmth of care and the tender embrace of affection from within. He was a master of his craft, oft compelled to embark upon lengthy journeys for the sake of his profession, leaving Van to dwell in solitude within the confines of their abode. For 3 years they were wed, yet their union found little time for the tender embrace of companionship. and the pitter-patter of little feet had yet to grace their abode. Van became accustomed to the protracted, desolate hours within the vast abode, where silence reigned and solitude lingered. In that fleeting instant, Van remained unaware of the gaze that lingered upon her. She yearned to seek refuge in a secluded nook, far from the burdens of existence and the clamor of the bustling town. Yet, in that moment, her gaze met Nam's, their hands entwined, as she lifted her eyes from the dim confines of the attic. Nam found himself in a state of perplexity, yet Van, with a soft smile, chose to turn his gaze elsewhere. In a fleeting instant, Nam summoned his valor and ascended upon Van's table. He paused and inquired, "Pardon me, would it trouble you if I were to take a seat beside you?" Van cast a glance upon Nam, a touch of astonishment gracing his visage. Yet soon he did acquiesce with a nod of concord. Their discourse commenced with an ease most fitting. Nam didst present himself, recounting the tale of his labors and existence within the bustling realm of the city. Van did lend an ear, oft replying with soft-spoken phrases. Yet she appeared reluctant to unveil much of her own tale. In due course, Nam discovered that Van too resided in Hanoi, not far from his humble abode. They commenced a discourse on existence in this realm, reflecting upon the solitude that each bore within their hearts. Van did regale her with tales of his toil in the realm of numbers, of the burdens he bore from both his vocation and the demands of kin, which she too was enduring. Though Nam inquired little, he sensed within Van a concealed sorrow, a melancholic weight she was loath to disclose. Following that unforeseen encounter, Nam found his thoughts incessantly wandering to Van. She possessed a certain allure that captivated him, not solely for her visage, but for the quietude and the measured cadence with which she spoke. After the passage of a few days, Nam resolved to send a missive to Van, extending an invitation for another rendezvous over coffee. On this occasion, they convened at a different establishment, one more serene, nestled close to the West Lake. "Dost thou frequent this place oft?" Nam inquired, his tone tinged with a hint of curiosity. "At times, perchance. In times when I seek solace and tranquility, I find my way here," Van did respond, yet his gaze wandered to the tranquil waters of the lake. Nam perceived that Van's existence was far more intricate than her outward semblance suggested. And the deeper he ventured into her realm, a realm steeped in quietude and unspoken sorrow, they engaged in deeper discourse, revealing more of their intimate tales. The meetings did increase in frequency, and Nam found himself awakening to a newfound warmth. For the solitude that once enveloped him began to dissipate in the presence of Van. As the eve descended and the city cloaked itself in shadows, Nam found himself unexpectedly graced with a missive from Van. Their meeting at this hour was no longer a tranquil repast of coffee as it had been in days of yore. Van did send forth a missive, extending an invitation, as is his custom. "Art thou at leisure? Pray, I desire to partake in a libation." Verily, a notion akin to that. Nam required not the toil of contemplation. He did respond with great haste. "Verily, I shall come to fetch thee. Whither dost thou lead us?" Van did respond with a grin, directing towards a tavern nestled in a narrow lane behind the tranquil waters of Ho Hon Kiem Lake. Unlike the prior summons, this time, Nam sensed an unusual air in Van's beckoning. It appeared as though she sought a pursuit beyond mere quotidian exchanges of affection. Upon the arrival of Nam, Van didst await outside the tavern. She donned a dark leather mantle, paired with trousers that did accentuate her lengthy, graceful limbs. Her visage bore a subtle adornment, yet it retained an alluring charm. Nam was taken aback upon beholding Van, yet he swiftly masked his astonishment and bestowed upon her a smile. "Today I yearn to alter the course of the breeze." Nam jested, yet his gaze remained steadfast upon Van's visage. Van didst shrug his shoulders. "I yearn to embark upon a different venture. On this day, my mind seeks respite, desiring naught but the sweet embrace of tranquility." Lo, the two souls didst cross the threshold of the tavern. The ambiance within the tavern was a curious blend of silence and raucous melody, with shadows dancing in the soft glow that adorned the chamber. Van led Nam to a secluded nook of the table and summoned forth a few goblets of wine for their enjoyment. In the beginning, They partook of their libations with measured sips, engaging in their customary discourse. Yet as the chalices of wine drew near, the discourse betwixt them grew ever more tender, and the ambiance turned peculiar. Nam, unaccustomed to the indulgence of wine in great measure, did partake of a few additional goblets for the sake of his fair companion. Van didst smile with greater frequency. Her eyes did shine with a radiant glow, whilst Van's lips, like ripe cherries, did gleam beneath the soft illumination of the tavern. At times, she would rest her head upon Nam's shoulder, her laughter ringing forth as she recounted tales without end. Nam did perceive a gentle warmth emanating from Van's form, accompanied by a delicate fragrance reminiscent of floral waters, which rendered him utterly bewildered. She was inebriated, quoth Nam. He felt a growing unease as he beheld Van drawing nearer and nearer to him. I am in good spirits. Verily, I have not known such comfort in many a moon. Less than text dost thou not approve of my imbibing? Perchance? Van beheld him, a delightful smile gracing his countenance. Nam did not respond, yet within his breast, a peculiar sentiment began to take form. Van was perilously near, his allure undeniable, and Nam sensed that should this course persist, he would find himself unable to restrain his desires. Though he was aware of the folly, the intensity of this bond proved too compelling to resist. It did besiege all his reasoned thoughts until they did emerge from the tavern. Both inebriated, Van didst meander upon elevated heels, wholly enraptured by Nam. He distinctly sensed her gentle breath upon him and the tender touch of her fingers clasping his arms with fervor. She yearned to return to her abode, yet the thought of embarking on that journey in solitude filled her with trepidation. Van, in a state of inebriation, didst momentarily depart from the scene. Nam gazed upon Van, her eyes no longer alight with vigor, yet they bore a beguiling allure, as if beckoning forth an enchanting invitation. In that fleeting instant, Nam found himself unable to contain the profound reverence he felt for Van. Their connection, once a mere whisper, now roared to life after countless encounters, leaving his reason in tatters, consumed by the fervor of his heart. They did summon a carriage to convey them to Van's abode. Within the confines of the carriage, Nam endeavored to maintain his composure, yet Van persisted in his fervent embrace. Her head did rest upon his shoulder, her breath warm and fervent, whilst her hands did gently grace his back, causing Nam's heart to quicken its pace. His thoughts were now unclouded, free from the tumult of uncertainty. The final destination was a grand edifice of 3 stories, yet it bore an air of chill and desolation. Van did strive to unfasten the portal, yet his digits appeared to lack the requisite firmness, for he bore a certain ruggedness about him. Nam didst stand behind her, his gaze nigh her delicate shoulders clad in a garment of light. The tumult of thoughts that had ensnared his mind whilst he lingered in the tavern now emerged with a clarity most profound. As the portal did part, Van did enter, casting aside his elevated footwear and flinging his cloak upon the settee. Nam did pursue and shut the portal behind him. The chamber lay in such profound silence that it sent a shiver through the very air. The vigor of manhood yet lingered within him, causing Nam's thoughts to swirl, yet his heart brimmed with an ineffable emotion. Van didst turn about, casting his gaze upon Nam with eyes but half closed, his lips taking on a hue of crimson. She did wear a smile, yet that very smile appeared to cloak not her unease. Nam beheld Van in a quietude that spoke volumes. His gaze bore a novel quality, distinct from that of yore. Van's gaze, akin to the gentle descent of his eyelids, beckoned him forth with an irresistible allure. He drew nearer, sensing the gentle heat radiating from her form as he stood beside her. The stillness that enveloped them stretched on, a void of utterance, yet the air grew thick with unspoken weight. Van's fair sibling, Nam hath called. His voice, rich and resonant, echoed through the silence, yet met with naught but stillness. Van offered no reply, merely gazed upon Nam. In that instant, a profound realization dawned upon them, for they grasped that the unfolding events were beyond their control. There existed no cause for elucidation, nor any necessity for utterance. All the emotions within their souls were laid bare, rendering speech unnecessary. Nam approached with a tender grace, his fingers brushing softly against her hand. Van, though taken aback, did not withdraw her hand. The gentle warmth of Nam's hand did quicken the rhythm of Van's heart. Both were acutely aware that they had traversed the boundary they had established for their own selves. Their breaths quickened as Nam drew Van nearer with a gentle pull. There existed neither space nor pause. Van gazed upward, her lips parted in a manner that suggested words yearned to escape. Yet silence enveloped her instead. In that fleeting instant, Nam cast his gaze downward, his lips softly brushing against hers. It was a kiss steeped in romance, yet brimming with fervent emotion. Forsooth, they had awaited this moment with bated breath for an age most prolonged. The fragrance of the vine lingered upon their lips, entwined with a fervent thirst, drawing them into an unending dance that could not be halted. Van endeavored to urge Nam away, not out of rejection, but rather due to a torrent of emotion that engulfed her. Her orbs, though shrouded in darkness, brimmed with compassion's light. Van did withdraw to the bed, yet clutched Nam's hand with a fervor that spoke of her reluctance to part ways. His hand clasped hers with gentle fervor, drawing her nearer, and together they tumbled upon the plush embrace of the bed. Upon the bed, naught lay to hinder their advance. The waning light from without cast a crimson hue upon Van's visage, a reflection of the wine's indulgence. Nam cast his gaze upon Van, and lo, both were filled with fervent anticipation. There they lay, breaths deep and labored, clasping one another's hands as though striving to seize this fleeting instant. The embraces grew more fervent, and the affections for one another revealed themselves with greater clarity. In the vessel, they allow all to unfold with ease, devoid of remorse, untroubled by dread. This eve, this humble chamber shall transform into the cradle of fresh and exhilarating emotions. A moment they shall forever hold dear in their hearts. The chamber fell into a profound hush, where only the swift inhalations of the pair intertwined with the rhythmic thumping of the heart could be heard. Van reclined beneath the faint glow of the chamber, her eyelids gently shut, her lips a vivid crimson, lingering with the essence of wine and the recent caress. Nam cast his gaze upon her. His heart did race within his breast, as though he were plunging into a profound abyss of sentiments. He was unaware of his actions, yet a tempest surged within his breast. Van's form, positioned before him, was a tapestry of vigor and delicacy. With but a gentle caress, it would surely scatter into the ether. Nam's hand trembled as it brushed against her shoulder, drawing her garment aside to unveil the fair, unblemished skin that glimmered softly in the light. Nam paused, his gaze entranced, unable to part from her visage. Van lay there, mute, yet her form stirred as though to answer each caress of his hand. Nam's hand did linger upon Van's delicate skin, perceiving each gentle breath she took, as his hand did softly glide over her shoulder and arm. Van bit her lips, her eyes a delicate balance of half closed and half open, stirred by an unexpected sensation coursing through her form. It was a sensation most unfamiliar to her, a mingling of fervor and trepidation. As he knelt low, his lips grazed her skin, savoring the warmth that emanated from her form. Van trembled, yet did not decline, nor did he harbor thoughts of halting. Yet, in stark contrast, Van's form did react with an instinctive fervor with every breath. The cadence quickened, and each caress drew her further into the depths of sensation. Nam clasped her with fervor, drawing her ever nearer, both entwined as if by fate, bound in a union that none could sever. His lips brushed against her neck, her shoulder, each caress igniting a fervent fire upon their skin. Within the confines of the chamber, a touch of valor and fervor caused them to cast aside all that surrounded them, leaving naught but instinct and feeling. Van inhaled deeply, her fingers entwined about Nam's neck, drawing him nearer with an earnest longing. All the tumult, all the chasm that lay betwixt the two appeared to vanish into thin air. They had ceased to be companions, no longer bound by the ties of kinship, but rather two forms entwined in a fervent embrace, unable to break free from their union. Nam did pause, casting his gaze upward towards Van. His gaze brimmed with marvel, yet a hint of anticipation lingered, as though he yearned to inquire if she was resolute in her choice. Yet, ere he could utter a word, Van did draw him down with haste. Her lips met his once again, with fervor and intensity, igniting a flame of desire. Her silence spoke volumes, her deeds sufficing to respond to Nam. The two souls delved profoundly into one another, oblivious to the passage of time or the bounds of space. This humble chamber, its confines, the flickering illumination, all appeared to dissolve into the ether. In that fleeting instant, it appeared as though they were ensconced in a realm solely for themselves, where all cares and all trepidations were cast aside. Nam perceived every motion of Van, each throb from her heart, and comprehended that they had ventured too far to turn back. This sensation was far too potent to be quelled. And on that eve, all confines were shattered. Once the fervent tempests had subsided, the chamber returned to its former tranquility. Only the gentle inhalations of the pair ascended, mingling with the serene ambiance of the eve. Nam and Van reclined beside one another, a gentle warmth enveloping them, stirred by the lingering motion within the abode. Both were wearied, yet keenly attuned to the silent bond that had just been forged between them. Van lay in quiet repose, her gaze cast upon the window, where the luminescence of the streets beyond did enter, casting a gentle glow upon the floor of the abode. Her heart did slow its fervent pace, yet the peculiar emotions stirred within her, for she had not anticipated that the eve would conclude in such a manner. She ne'er anticipated that such a fate could befall her. In her thoughts, a tempest brewed, caught between the joyous echoes of recent delight and the shadowy specters of future anxieties. Nam reclined beside Van, his hand tenderly caressing the silken strands of Van's hair, savoring the delicate texture as it flowed through his fingers. It goes without saying, he perceived that each was lost in the labyrinth of their own musings. This eve hath transformed all that was known. They had traversed a threshold that none had deemed possible, and now the intricate emotions were awakening within the hearts of all. Dost thou harbor regret for thine actions? Nam inquired, his voice a whisper yet laden with worry. He was unaware of the sentiments that stirred within Van's breast, yet he found himself beset by a tempest of concern. Van didst remain silent for a moment. Then with great deliberation did he turn about. Her gaze lingered upon Nam's visage. Her eyes, once clouded with tumult and concern, now shone with a serene tranquility. Van didst smile, a gentle smile, yet sufficient to dissolve the burdens that weighed upon Nam's heart. Nay, quoth Van, with a voice both gentle and sincere, I harbor no remorse. We must needs ponder with greater care upon all matters henceforth after this eve. Nam didst nod. He comprehended her intent. Both were aware that this was not merely a fleeting instant. The genuine sentiments had ignited and etched a profound impression upon their souls. Both remained silent, allowing the quietude to envelop the space that lay betwixt them. In the twilight hours, though they were aware that existence would grow more intricate following this instant, a peculiar tranquility enveloped them still. This eve, come what may, marked a significant juncture for both Nam and Van, and they were acutely aware that naught would remain unchanged henceforth. Since that fervent and intense encounter, Van and Nam found themselves entwined in a web of joy yet fraught with peril. As the days did pass, the bond twixt the two did transform from mere fleeting encounters to an essential thread woven into the very fabric of her existence. They did persist in their correspondence, trading fervent expressions, causing the two to plunge ever further into the abyss of their emotions. Each morn, Van did receive a missive from Nam. A brief utterance sufficed to quicken her pulse. No lengthy discourse required. Art thou at leisure? Pray, I long to behold thy presence. And thus, they encountered one another in myriad locales, from the chambers of Van to the loft of Nam, where the two might find greater ease and solace. The hours did wane, slipping swiftly from the gaze of the inquisitive souls. The two were akin to winged creatures, ensnared in an emotion that none could govern. Upon entering Van's abode, Nam crossed the threshold with a newfound ease, as if the very walls whispered secrets of old. At times, with but the gentle creak of the door's opening, Van perceived her heart quickening, for she knew that Nam had made his entrance. They embraced, a silent communion, where words were rendered superfluous, merely gazes exchanged. A tender kiss, and the invigorating caress of the breeze, In such fleeting instances, she perceived that all her cares had been whisked away, leaving naught but the two of them and the tempest of their feelings. In an instant, Van's abode transformed into a sanctuary from the burdens of existence, whilst Nam and Van frequently sought refuge in quaint inns nestled in desolate lanes, where they could momentarily cast aside the weight of their mundane lives and revel in the bliss shared between them. Each encounter brought forth a quest for uncharted realms, where they might rekindle their fervent passions and sustain the flame of longing. In that eternal round, Van found himself unmoored from the very essence of time. With each passing day, the mere thought of their meeting, the sight of his missives, brought a serene calm to Van's heart. Though she was well aware of the peril that lay ahead, she found herself unable to refrain from proceeding. It was not merely a fervor, but a profound sentiment that she had never before encountered. There were afternoons when they convened at Nam's abode, a sanctuary where both could find solace, unburdened by the passage of time or the gaze of others. In that realm, they entombed themselves in joy. The instances both near and distant grew more fervent than ever before. The prolonged embraces and fervent kisses filled their hearts with a dread that the passage of time might snatch away these cherished moments at any fleeting instant. On a certain day, Van found herself in her chamber, perusing the ancient missives from Nam, and a smile did grace her countenance. In that very instant, a missive from Nam did arrive unto her. "Dost thou long for my presence? Hast thou and I crossed paths before?" Without a moment's pause, she did declare, "I am on my way. I await thee." The pair did persist in entrenching themselves within their engagements. Time transformed into a distant spectre, eluding the grasp of the two souls entwined. The trepidation of concealment, the peril of affection, served only to intensify the bond betwixt the two souls. There existed naught but the fleeting instances wherein they might unite, near yet brimming with fervor, enduring from this day unto the morrow. Yet, within the depths of her soul, Van discerned that this unending cycle could not endure for all eternity. In a time yet to unfold, her lord shall return once more. And then, would she possess the valor to confront these emotions? On the 28th of Tet, the air beyond the city walls grew tranquil, a serenity unmatched in times past. The thoroughfares of Hanoi bustled with a multitude of souls traversing their paths. All did venture forth to procure the final wares in readiness for the festival of Tet. Yet within the confines of Van's modest dwelling, all appeared to be in a state of suspended animation. Lo, a missive from her lord had just graced her hands. "He shall return upon the 29th day of Tet. Together shall we revel in the joyous occasion of Tet. My beloved spouse." The tidings weighed heavily upon Van's heart. On the morrow, all shall transform. Her lord shall return anon, and all shall return to the manner in which it once was. This dual existence must find its conclusion, at least for an extended season. Yet, what troubled Van the most was the depth of her affections for Nam, which were far from superficial. Yet, in truth, they were of a depth and strength most profound. With each glance upon my device, missives from Nam didst materialize, stirring a tempest of unease within my breast. Lo, the missive from Nam hath just reached mine eyes. Thou art desired to be in mine presence. Van was acutely aware that this moment might be their final encounter ere her spouse returned. She found herself unable to restrain her yearning. She did respond with a message. "Verily, I shall make my approach forthwith. Stay not thy course elsewhere. Mine own spouse shall return on the morrow." Lo, not long hence, the chime of the doorbell did sound, and in strode Nam. His gaze revealed a yearning heart, yet it bore a tinge of melancholy. Few words were uttered. They gazed upon one another, as though their hearts yearned to convey all that lay within. Nam drew near to Van, encircling her waist, and drew her into the depths of his heart. They lingered in stillness, a gentle warmth enveloping them, until the sudden chime of the doorbell broke the spell. Nam's kiss did swiftly find its way to Van's lips, yet it bore not the gentleness of yore. It was a fervent embrace, as though fate had decreed their paths would part henceforth. His hand glided along her waist, drawing her coat aside to unveil her fair, unblemished skin. Her breath did quicken, her heart did race as she sensed Nam's hand pressing into her form. Van found herself unable to quell the tempest of feelings that surged within her breast. They were aware that this moment might be their final embrace, and such knowledge would forge their bond with a strength unparalleled. Van didst collapse upon her bed, her eyes yet brimming with yearning. Without delay, Nam did enter the chamber. His lips did persist in their fervent exploration of her fair, unblemished skin, rich embraces steeped in yearning and remorse. Nam's hand glided softly along her neck, descending to her shoulders, and then to the intimate realms known solely to them. Their breaths entwined, the air thick with the weight of fervent passions. Nam did bend low and laid his hand upon her arm. Art thou aware of the depths of my longing for thee? Thou art sorely missed. My heart doth ache for thee. Thou art sorely missed. My heart doth ache for thee. In this present age, they seek not merely for delight. This doth represent a confluence of all the emotions they have long kept within their breast. Each gentle caress, each tender kiss, each fleeting breath weaves a bond, as though they strive to grasp every instant ere it slips away into the ether. The swift inhalations, the yearning entwined with the tender melancholy that pervades the atmosphere. Van embraced Nam with fervor, sensing the rhythmic pulse of his heart against his own breast. The bliss endured for a span of 2 hours, as though they endeavored to grasp each cherished instant with fervent longing. When the final act had drawn to a close, they reclined beside one another, silence enveloping them like a shroud. Nam, with gentle grace, swept his locks aside, whilst Van rested serenely within his embrace. Words failed to capture the depths of their emotions in that moment. They sensed the intimacy, aware that the morrow would bring forth a transformation of all that was. In due course, Nam did declare, "I shall miss thee." Van did nod, his gaze lingering upon the abode above. "Though my heart shall ache in thy absence, we must return to the paths we tread, for such is the way of life. Is it not?" Her voice did tremble, yet she endeavored to maintain her fortitude. Nam did not respond. She embraced her with greater fervor. He was well aware that such a state could not endure for eternity. Yet that did little to assuage the anguish that resided within their souls. They did repose there, in a hush profound, filling the chamber with the scent of remorse and sorrow. From the moment they exchanged vows, Van and Nam were fated to part ways, never to behold one another's visage again. They were confined to the art of written missives alone. Words steeped in yearning and sorrow caused Nam to ache for Van with increasing fervor. With each missive from Nam, her heart did race, yet a shadow of dread loomed, for she feared her husband might uncover the truth. Nam did convey, "I yearn for thee with great intensity. My mind doth wander to the moments we shared, ever lingering in my thoughts." Van found her heart in turmoil, for each night brought forth the haunting echoes of her memories of Nam. Upon the eve of the new year, as the kin assembled, the atmosphere was imbued with warmth and comfort. Van's lord did graciously receive, pouring forth the wine and sharing mirth with all present. She endeavored to maintain a facade of normalcy, seated amongst the throng, yet within her breast, a tempest of anxiety did swell. Upon the sudden chime of her device, she hastily retrieved it from her pocket, her gaze falling upon a missive from Nam. "Thou art sorely missed. My heart doth ache for thee. Mine patience hath been worn thin, and I can endure it no longer. May I venture forth to behold your presence?" Her heart did still thump fiercely within her breast. Lo, Nam stood without, at this very moment, as the world did convene to usher in the dawn of the new year. She was well aware that venturing forth bore great peril, for the dwelling was brimming with visitors, and her spouse remained within its confines. Yet, the missive from Nam was akin to an unseen thread, drawing her forth from her confines. She found herself unable to decline, unable to withstand the yearning to behold Nam, even if it were but for a fleeting instant. She cast her gaze upon her spouse, observing him in discourse with his companions. Then rising, feigning a desire for the cool embrace of the evening air, as she crossed the threshold, her heart did race, beset by a tempest of anxiety and trepidation. The thoroughfares lay desolate and still, devoid of the clamor that oft accompanies the dawn's embrace. The luminescence from the verdant boughs and flickering lanterns did render the nocturnal firmament more resplendent. She didst emerge from the chamber and forthwith beheld Nam in waiting. He donned a heavy cloak, his visage brimming with anticipation and yearning. Upon beholding her, a radiant joy did illuminate Nam's eyes. He had long awaited this fateful hour. Nam did declare, his voice resonating with fervent emotion. Thou art sorely missed. My heart doth ache for thee. To dwell within these walls and not ponder upon thee is a task most grievous to my heart. She endeavored to maintain her composure. Yet her heart did race with fervor upon the sight of Nam. Though perilous was the gathering, the fervor within her breast rendered her powerless to desist. But a mere whisper, she did utter, her voice dwindling into the ether. She was compelled to depart ere the sun had fully set. A secret held close by all. Nam required no further utterances. He grasped her delicate hand and gently led her forth from the dwelling. They did hasten forth, as though fleeing from the very essence of verity. All the inns lay shuttered, for scarce was there room to unbar the entrance and bid travelers welcome. Then they came to a desolate expanse, where the meadows stretched far beneath the soft glow of the moon. The chill of the night breeze, the frigid air rendered all things more wondrous and surreal. In the boundless expanse of nature, where the eyes of the world could not behold them, Nam and Van stood, embraced by the serene shadows and the gentle whispers of the earth. Free from the confines of light and limitation, Nam embraced Van with fervor, as though he might shatter at any instant. His kiss was fervent and intense, as though he feared that fate would conspire to keep them apart forever. Van did return the kiss with fervor. His fingers did traverse the nape of Nam's neck, drawing him nearer with a gentle yet insistent pull. His fingers traversed the silken strands of his hair, sensing the fervor and vigor in every motion of Nam. The gentle exhalations of the two entwined, becoming one in the soft embrace of the moment. The heart did quicken its pace. All things appeared to burst forth in the boundless expanse of the natural world. The whispering breeze that danced o'er the meadows, the sweet scent of the soil that enveloped them, conjured a tableau both lyrical and forlorn. Van perceived that this was the perilous hour, yet it was also a moment that she could not halt. Nam did tenderly lay her upon the gentle embrace of the verdant grass. His gaze beheld her, brimming with affection and yearning. In the soft glow of the moon, they entwined their souls, becoming one. There existed naught but fervor and exhilaration, with the awareness that at any moment, all could shatter into fragments. Nam's caresses, each gentle kiss, each rhythm of his form, all conspired to make Van feel as though he dwelt within a reverie. At this juncture, naught could hinder their advance. The fervent sighs of the two ascended into the boundless expanse, mingling with the whispers of the breeze and the symphony of the natural world surrounding them. When all had come to a close, the two reclined upon the verdant earth, their breaths returning to a steady rhythm. Van cast his gaze upon the heavens above. The moonlight doth shine aloft, casting a tranquil glow upon the verdant blades. Yet lo, in an instant, dread didst creep back upon the heart. She was aware that she had ventured beyond the bounds, and this tranquility was but a fleeting illusion. Nam didst rise, tenderly caressing Van's tresses, his gaze fluttering beneath the silvery glow of the moon. I make my way home, whispered Nam. I wish not for thee to find thyself in a predicament. Van did incline his head in acknowledgement. Her heart bore a weight most grievous as she took her leave from Nam once more. They stood up, trimmed their clothes, and quietly returned. This emotional night they knew that no matter how hard they tried, their lives would never be the same again. Van walked home, her heart pounding because she was so nervous and desperate. The door was right in front of her and she knew that when she walked through that door, she would have to continue her normal life, continue to hide her true feelings. But tonight, under the sky of Hanoi, in the middle of the wilderness, Van and Nam had a moment that they will never forget. Time passed. Tet came and went, but the event of that night was deeply imprinted in Van and Nam's mind like an indelible secret. Although Van's husband still didn't know anything, her life continued as usual. But the times she touched Nam or the intimate messages remained like a fire that never went out. Every time her husband went to work or when she had a little time alone, the memories of the two of them overflowed and filled her heart. Nam and Van continued to keep in touch, but no longer rushed like before. They understood that real life still had to go on. Nam no longer asked to see her as usual, But in each message he sent back, the memories and longing still could not be hidden. It was a relationship that was both strange, close-knit, careful, but full of passion. The appointments now, rarer, every time happened in a hurry and quickly. So they knew that everything had to be kept forever. Van knew that she had gone too far. But at the same time she could not return to the peaceful life before. The excitement, the anxiety of the relationship with Nam was deeply engraved in her mind, making her unable to completely let go. Every time she was inside, she felt a little guilty, but she also tried to hide it carefully, keeping everything flowing, so nothing happened. Nam, although he tried to keep the distance, he still could not stop thinking about her. Nam knew that this relationship had no future. But his love for Van was not just a moment of short-lived passion. It had crossed the line, becoming a part of him that he could not leave behind. Every message from her, every time they met, it was like adding firewood to the fire in his heart. Life continued. Van's husband still did not know anything. Everything outside was still normal, peaceful, so there was no wind. But deep inside, both Van and Nam understood that they had fallen into an irreversible loop. It was an unrevealed relationship, but it could not be stopped. A mixed love, both sweet and scary. They knew that they could not live without the divine feelings that they had for each other. In the moments when they faced each other, through the eyes, through the short messages, they knew that this relationship would continue, even though no one knew where it would go, or if they could keep it a secret forever. Well, whatever it was, hungry or thirsty, they had to find something to eat right away. The only thing is that this was food, and it was very easy to be discovered, wasn't it? Our story today will stop here. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. I hope that the details and emotions in the story have brought you interesting and meaningful moments. If you like this video, don't forget to click like, share, and leave a comment below the video so we know your opinion. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any stories in the future. See you in the next videos. Have a nice day.